Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Beastmen have ravaged their way all the way to Naggarond, and now Malekith stands in front of them. As the Beastmen face off against the Dark Elves, I will be commanding the Beastmen, and we'll have Azrael of Astora will be on the Dark Elves. So for the Beastmen, it is going to be Ungor herds in that front line. We do have a flank of Bestigor herds on the two sides, as they do have some rather nice armor piercing. Good armor, especially against the potential for some elite infantry units from the Dark Elves. These guys do pack quite a nice punch, and they are pretty decent against the cavalry as well. And then we do have a bit of range, so we have some Ungor Raiders as well, 3 units of those in total. And then we have a Brave Shaman of Wild for the spellcasting, going to be on its chariot, coming in with Traderkin as well as Devolve. So Devolve does give that minus 25% charge speed and melee attack, and then we do have Traderkin, which is a nice little damage either, which also reduces the speed of enemy units to boot as well for some nice control, and the Jagged Dagger getting a little bit of extra power recharge and power reserves. For the Lord, it is going to be Morgur, the Shadowgave. He is going to be rolling in with both of his Chaos Spawn summons, and then in the mobility department, it is going to be Centaurs with throwing axes, a couple of units of those. We have Centaurs with great weapons, and 2 regular Centaurs as well to boot for the cavalry, and then there is going to be a pair of Chaos Warhounds on the flank for some quick mobility, some poison, and good at chasing off some of the routing units. Now, as for the Dark Elves, we do have Malekith up in the sky, up on his dragon, and he is going to be rolling in with, it looks like, Soul Stealer, as well as his take a little look at the Gaze of Malice, so a nice little teardrop, a nice good at clearing out, especially the low armored Beastmen can do quite nice with that, especially if cast nice and well, and that having that breath attack as well can nice chew through that archer line pretty quickly indeed. Now for the mobility on their side, they have some Dark Riders, they have some Cold One Knights, and then they have some Dark Riders with their repeater crossbows, so a fairly similar style for the Dark Elves here, as they do have a mix of kind of more heavy cavalry with that range skirmish, so it's going to be fairly similar on that front. For the front line, it is going to be Dread Spears across the board, as we do have 1 unit of Helibroni, though. They are going to be a bit cheaper with this patch, but they do have poison themselves. While poison isn't as potent as it used to be, it is still quite strong and nice to have. And then behind all that frontline troops is going to be 3 units of the Sisters of Slaughter, and they themselves have gotten a rather nice boost, even though they do have poison, but they did get a nice buff to their melee attack and melee defense, so these guys are going to be able to help chew through that Beastmen horde pretty quickly. But that is going to be it for both sides of things, so let's get things rolling as the armies are going to be approaching one another, as the Beastmen and the Dark Elves are going to be meeting on the crest of this hill, as Malekith is going to be flying overhead, circling around, looking to be getting into that fight, getting some nice Soul Stealers off, as the Centaurs of Throwing Axe is going to be just kind of skirmishing their way on the flanks, going to be getting some shots into these Dark Riders, doing a nice little bit of damage there, and then some of the Helibroni on the other side are taking some fire from themselves. Malekith does dive right into these Ungor herd, as the Sisters of Slaughter are going to follow up with a nice charge of their own, and already these Ungor herds are taking a nice bit of damage. Gaze of Malice doing a nice bit to the Ungor Raiders, and they are going to be focusing their attention though on to the Sisters of Slaughter. We do have a Traderkin going to be going down though, and that is going to be hitting the Sisters of Slaughter. Both units of these doing a nice bit of damage between the 2 of them, but the front line for the Beastmen is wavering very quickly, as the Sisters of Slaughter quickly make a short work of those Ungor herds, while the rest of the flanks, we do have the Bestigors a little out of position here, but they are going to be engaging with some Dread Spears, and they should be able to hold off pretty well against them. All of the Ungor Raiders getting pushed back by those Sisters of Slaughter, and Malekith just kind of caught in. A nice little Soul Stealer was down there, going to be hitting these Bestigors as they do tear out, and now Morgur is going to be diving on in, as these Centaurs with great weapons going to be diving in behind. Nice charge, and this is Slaughter giving these Bestigors a little bit of breathing room. He also does get that Chaos Spawn summon, so they are going to be getting a nice bit of mass and should be able to at least break down one of the Sisters of Slaughter and maybe hold down Malekith. But on the flanks here, the mobility department is going fairly decently for the Dark Elves. They are able to kind of get a nice catch of the Centaurs, getting shots into the Dark Riders with repeater crossbows, and these Cold One Knights are getting getting a very nice charge, should be able to take these Centaurs out very, very quickly indeed. Taking a look at the rest of the units here, the Sisters of Slaughter taking quite a bit of damage, getting quite low for those units, and even these Cold One Knights taking a bunch of damage as that second Chaos Spawn is going to be going down and doing a nice bit of damage to them, even though they are anti-large. This is just a summon, so that's pretty much free value from there, as the Brave Shaman does cast Devolve on to Malekith, lowering his speed and melee attack, kind of getting him out of the way, as it does charge right in to the Sisters of Slaughter with Morgar here to assist. And things are looking fairly even so far. Balance power is pretty much right where we started this game at. Beastmen had a slight edge in that. Some more units can be returning on the far flanks for the Beastmen. Plenty of ammunition left on these Ungor Raiders. That is one of the big things here that the Beastmen have going for them. Centaurs and throwing axes have pretty much used up all of their ammunition, and these Bestigor are still going very strong on the flank, able to take down 2 of these Dread Spears by the looks of things, and still sitting pretty in terms of the total units. Off in the forest, we do have some more of these Centaurs getting beaten down by the Dark Riders, as they are catching out these Chaos Warhounds with poison. And a Traderkin did catch these Dark Riders as well as the Cold One Knights, so a nice bit of value from hitting both of those cab units. And the Centaurs throwing axes are just firing right into the rear of these Cold One Knights as they do a retreat, and the Sisters of Slaughter going down to Morgar, and that Brave Shaman just trying to get out of the way. Malekith is continuing to fly overhead, maybe shifting slightly towards the center here in the Dark Elves' favor. They still have quite a bit of mobility left. They still have their spears, and Malekith is at full health, and that is going to be the biggest problem here. And that Brave Shaman definitely way out of position here, does not want to be charging into these Dark Riders, and Malekith is going to be getting a nice few attacks into the rear, causing that Brave Shaman to rout. And these Cold One Knights are in a prime position to make sure that that Brave Shaman does stay out of the fight, but they are instead of going to elect to charge forward, maybe trying to catch out these Ungor Raiders, while the Centaurs with great weapons get a nice side charge into them, and the Cold One Knights are going to be pulling out of that engagement, taking a bunch of shots from these Ungor Raiders, and the Centaurs are throwing axes to boot, getting very low and very may rout here. Off in the back front, we have the Dark Riders with the Repeater Crossbows also getting charged in by the Centaurs and the Chaos Warhounds with poison, but these Dread Spears are there to kind of brace through that charge, and with the collapse of these Dark Riders, these 2 units are probably going to be short for this world, and they will be going right towards that edge of the map momentarily. Malekith trying to deal some damage to Morgar, but is going to be electing to charge forward into these Ungor Raiders, as he is still going to be taking a little bit of crossfire, but for the most part he is able to kind of silence those bows for just a little bit. So Centaur is getting a little bit of distance for themselves to get some shots in, and actually Malekith is taking quite a bit of damage here, as the Centaur's full health now used up all of their ammunition, charge into some very depleted Cold One Knights, and they are going to be able to do some nice bit of damage, able to rout one of them. The other one is just on slivers of HP, only 3 models left. They will be routing themselves, and now these Dark Riders with their Repeater Crossbows still have a bit of ammunition on this one unit, but the other one is getting fairly low. But Malekith, his HP is just not sitting too great right now. That Soul Stealers are able to heal up his health a little bit, but all of this focus shot coming in, plenty of ammunition left on both sides to deal some nice bit of damage as these Dark Riders charge in, trying to break these Centaurs with the assistance of Malekith, who is on just bare minimum in terms of leadership. He is at 10 -4 there for a second, but he is able to stabilize and pull on out of that engagement on the fringes of routing. That would have been catastrophic for the Dark Elves, who are slipping in that balance power. Nice gaze of balance, though, going right through these Ungor Raiders, doing a nice little bit of damage there, just trying to get rid of these guys. They need to get them off the field. They just have so much ammunition left, and they are going to be free to fire, and these Centaurs are going to be able to give them that space to fire away. Bestigors, though, getting very low. The last shots from the Dark Riders with Repeater Crossbows, able to really kind of chunk through the remainder of their HP, and a breath attack catching some of the Centaurs as well as they charge into these Dark Riders, and the Dark Riders with Repeater Crossbows with Morgar in assistance. And things are kind of slowly falling apart here for the Dark Elves in the late game. Beastmen are putting a nice bit of pressure, keeping their mobility, keeping the Ungor Raiders, though, alive, and that is kind of the biggest thing. And they do have some more units up on the flanks, going to be able to kind of come back to these engagements. Otherwise, Malekith is going to be the biggest problem, and there's plenty of spears left, but if these Ungor Raiders are able to continue to pepper in, they should be able to finish them off, and especially with Morgar here taking the attention of these Dread Spears, while the other one, though, is going to turn their attention to these Ungor Raiders, getting a nice little charge in, and they are going to be wanting to pull out because they do not want to be stuck engaged. They have way too much ammunition to spend, and the Chaos Warhounds with poison, though, going to be trying to just buy them as much time as possible as they continue to get some shots and able to rout one of their units left, but they are stuck in melee, and they are losing models right now that they really cannot afford to lose. I mean, Morgar carries a lot of weight in that balance of power, and he is not going to be able to put up much of a fight to Malekith in a 1v1. He needs that ranged support if he is going to be able to bring down that dragon, as the Centaurs with throwing axes used up all their ammunition, are going to be chasing down these Dark Riders with your crossbows, making sure that they don't come back. A few units left, though, for the Dark Elves hiding in the trees. Some Dark Riders, some Cold One Knights, but otherwise it is these Dread Spears and Malekith are going to be all that is really left for the Dark Elves, and these Dread Spears going to be pulling back. I think they really need to kind of put some pressure on these Ungor Raiders, because now they are just going to take a ton of shots into the back, and especially a rear charge on these Centaurs with throwing axes is going to be enough to rout these Dread Spears, and that is a lot less now for the infantry department that they have left to kind of just muck things up. The last unit of Dread Spears is sitting very low, trying to regroup their units as the Dark Elves try and chase down. It looks like we have one unit off to the side here that is just kind of evading the Dark Elf chasing battalion, as the Dark Riders with Peter Crossbows can be charging in, trying to get on top of these Centaurs, but the Centaurs do have a nice bit of speed. They are at 93 right now over the 92 of the Dark Riders with Peter Crossbows, so they will be able to maintain that distance as long as these Dark Riders don't get close enough to get their charge speed in, which it does actually look like they are able to do that, so they are closing that distance, but it is not quite enough, and they are going to be able to regroup with the rest of the Beastmen roster, as the Ungor Raiders are now going to be sitting in position to start firing their own shots into the Dark Elf units, and NA shots are really going to be putting on quite a bit of hurt, especially to the rest of the units other than these Dark Riders, who will be able to pretty much rout them off on a single volley. The last Dread Spear does finally rout to a charge from the Centaurs, and they're going to be trying to finish the job. It looks like they're going to be pulling back themselves and just kind of pushing forward with their two Ungor Raiders, just trying to get as many ranged shots in as they can and kind of saving their Centaurs, who are sitting nice and fresh, which is one of the great things about these Centaurs, is they do have that nice bit of vigor. But Breath of Attack going to be coming in, doing a nice little bit of damage, and maybe not the best target, and a Soul Stealer going to be going down as well, and Morgar is going to be able to pull out of the way, but it still is going to be hitting those two Ungor Raiders. I think that is a bit of a bug there, considering those two Ungor Raiders are well outside of the radius of that Soul Stealer, so they should not have been affected by that. Centaurs, though, keeping up that pressure against the Dark Riders, keeping them from firing their last volley, and now they do get that final charge in, and they should make pretty quick work of these Dark Riders with your crossbows. These guys are not melee combatants, and Malekith does dive in, trying to just get an advantage off the charge, but now that those Dark Riders have routed, these Centaurs now turn their attention directly to Malekith, and with these Ungor Raiders now going to be able to start peppering in. I think Malekith is going to be short for this world, as these shots are going to start arcing their way right through Malekith, and he is taking quite a bit of damage, and the Dark Elves do concede. Beastmen take it in the end. So let's take a look at the after battle report here real quick and see just how things did fare on both sides. So as for the Dark Elves, the skirmish game did quite well, getting 940 and 1500, able to use up pretty much all of their ammunition for both units. However, the Cold One Knights maybe not doing quite as well. One got 750, the other one only 400 though. Dark Riders doing kind of fairly similar in total value. Sisters of Slaughter getting 1200, almost 1300 on this one unit, so that's pretty good themselves. 800, 480, not the best there. Dread Spears, not really going to expect too much out of them, and Malekith himself getting 2300, though he is rather expensive on that dragon, so he still wasn't able to pay for himself. As for the Beastmen side of things, for the mobility game, both of the Chaos Warhounds with Poison really weren't able to kind of get that chasing in that they really wanted to do. They were kind of mostly roadblocks. One unit did get a little caught out, but the Centaurs with throwing axes did very well. 1900 on these guys, doing very well. Instrumental in the end, 1100 on the other one. Rest of the Centaurs, nothing too great there, only 600 and 760 for the two notable ones. Ungor Raiders, on the other hand, getting 580 and 600 on the two that were remaining in the end, so rather nice on that side. Vestigor's not very great either. That one unit did get 820, was able to kind of take out two of the Dread Spears, but overall, though, still not quite enough value there, but really just kind of bringing them good against cavalry and kind of a little damage dealer against more of the elite infantry, so necessarily not a total waste. Ungors, of course, not going to be doing any great news on that side. As for that Bray Shaman, a while getting 1500, some nice Traderkins, and being on that chariot, able to get a nice little bit of damage in melee on to boot. And then Morgar, mostly bringing him for that Chaos Spawn, but he was able to get almost 1500 in total value himself, so rather nice job on his end, but a very well fought battle, very close all the way up until the very end, and I do hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.